potentially it is an ongoing observation how the mind engages its relationship with this conscious part of who you are, the observer, the experiencer. But what I really find fascinating, and I think that this is even a continuation of the last few talks, is that on some level we are choosing that communication, and on another level we have the ability to choose otherwise. And this really pertains to the practice of meditation, because of the quality of your mind is really what we want to cultivate. The ability to consciously experience one's own mental state in a way that is conducive for that which they wish to achieve. And I feel that that is not an unreasonable request coming from an individual to their experience of mind. So without becoming too engaged with the minutiae of what made up the experiences that you're having currently within the mind, we must allow the mind to soften in a definitive way. So when we give ourselves the request to soften mind, meaning softening the hold on thought, on concepts, on loops, that it is a definitive decision and it actually happens. But then how do we do that? It becomes quite clear over a short period of observation that our mental state and its ability to fall into that category of ease, comfort, and relaxation takes a certain level or amount of toning in order to make it happen. And this tone that we are developing within the mind is formally engaged within a strengthening process like a muscle. So if you think of any body part, you go to lift something and it feels, oh, that's a bit heavy. It was challenging to lift it from point A to point B. But if you do it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, repeatedly engaging in that same practice with proper technique and ergonomics from the body, then chances are definite that you will strengthen and be able to lift that object with greater ease and grace. And that is the same way that we have to approach the experiences that we're having within our meditation from the mind. So of course, in one aspect, we want the mind to be free. We want the mind to express itself in all ways that it needs to at that moment in time. But simultaneously, we do not want to buy into that in such a way that it pulls us away from our focused concentration of ease and comfort. So in the sweetest way possible, for you especially, in the position that you are in, there's little to no reason why this steadiness of mind cannot exist, other than you are choosing not to engage with it. So through engagement, we create the toning of that inner mind muscle. And that's ideally what we are cultivating through our meditation practice. And oftentimes I feel elements of frustration within meditation from people who I talk to or engage with, or elements of not even trying. Like it's a hopeless kind of a feeling that my mind is just too busy and I'm just going to sit here and enjoy this relaxation of my body. But the truth is we must engage with it, and there's elements, these very deep old parts of the brain that surprisingly are still expressing deep elements of fear or lack that is completely engaged within the depth of the experience of your mind construct, which in a formal sense is subconsciously guiding the elements which come up as conscious experience. I'm not directly saying that you are afraid of something. But what I'm saying is that it's earnest for an individual who is engaging within a meditation practice to ask the question, why? Why is it that my mind will not cooperate? And it's earnest for that same practitioner to look at all aspects of possibility, not just that which presents itself as being the obvious, which is, I just can't stop my mind. And instead, becoming very intimate with your mental process and have the belief structure that you are in control of that experience within mind. It sounds very easy. And I feel that it is actually quite easy. Most of you are engaging this mental mind muscle right now. Some in the form of engagement to understand the concept that we're talking about. Others in engagement of defiance or denying the concept altogether and that it has any validity. But it's the same engagement. So if you are engaging the inner mind muscle to understand concept, or if you are engaging the inner mind muscle to rebel against the concept, that's exactly what I'm speaking on. That subtle engagement that must be there within the inner mind in order to maintain the quality of space of the mind. And within that engagement, you simply relax, because that's what engagement is. At this moment in time, as I touch my two fingers together, my arm is actually completely engaged to the point where you couldn't bend it if you came over unless you forced it. But it looks quite relaxed. And that's what we want to develop with all aspects. So your mind experience is actually following the lead of your body's experience. And we want to engage the body and its posture in the way that we want the mind to be resting. Does this make sense? So one form of muscle engagement is then teaching the more subtle forms of muscle engagement to then follow suit or become stronger. So then the question is, well, what if my mind is already calm and relaxed, and what if it is already quiet, and what if it is already engaged within that focal point, which we would then call meditation? But I feel like I'm just looking at my eyelids or deep space, and nothing really is happening. Well, within that quality of space that is cultivated within the stillness of mind, there's two things that begin to occur. One, more subtle information, and that subtlety may come up as boredom or the dialogue of nothing is really happening. And that's the cue where we get to make a decision on how we engage this inner mind muscle. Are we letting it go and surrendering that thought, that dialogue, and allowing it to dissolve and absorb? Or are we engaging with it and building it? Are we engaging the inner mind muscle in an engaging of that thought or that belief and supporting it? See what I mean? So the engagement of this inner mind muscle must engage with something. Just like if I squeeze my arm within this posture, my muscle mass must engage with something. But what is it engaging with? It's engaging with itself, but it's also engaging with the space that exists between the threads of tissue within the body. It's actually engaging with that space and squeezing onto it, holding it in such a way that it can come and go as it pleases. And in that, my muscle tissue, the fiber, becomes a part of that space, and that space becomes a part of the muscle fiber. So the two become one. There's no longer any separation as my contemplation or as my developing engagement with the experience that I'm calling my muscle tissue. I can choose to wrap this muscle tissue around whatever it is that I want. My bones, the fascia. But ultimately, it's the quality of space itself that it wants to optimally work with, because that is the cleanest and clearest form of the muscle tissue itself. It is void of concept. It is void of opinion. It is the most subtle form of matter, which means it can materialize into anything that one wishes to manifest. So in that same way, the inner mind muscle must engage with something. And we see it every time we have a thought. If we follow it, that's the inner mind muscle engaging with it. If we dwell on it, that's the inner mind muscle engaging with it. But the whole premise of a meditation practice is to disengage from the thought formation and to re-engage, invest, and connect to the most subtle forms of matter that we can see with the mind's eye. So as we strengthen ourselves around it, it gives security of experience that you are able to rely on something, right? Because oftentimes that's what happens, is we feel a little bit all alone, and that sometimes can be scary. So our thoughts, whether they're good or bad, bring us company, bring us meaning, bring us purpose, creates an answer for the why. And so then that codependent relationship begins to occur. Now, whether or not it's good for you is up for debate. But now this is all thought formation and frequency of thought. So how many times a thought comes in, and whether or not we can ask the thought to slow down and be quiet. So as we begin to trade one for the other, we are enabling a well of experience to start to feel comfortable in presenting itself to the conscious form of who we are, the observer and the experiencer. And to me, that's really fascinating. So for each and every one of us here, we feel innocently that experience which we are having is the ultimate one, and oftentimes the only one which exists. Do you ever feel that way? So that which is happening to you is the only thing that is happening in the world. For good reason, because you are actually the center of that world. You are the center. You are the experiencer. And that's oftentimes how we can actually fall into that patterned trap. So trap is a way of describing an experience of the mind sheath, the manomaya kosha. So the mind is experienced throughout the entire body, not just some mysterious something inside the head, but it's considered to be an exact blueprint of the physical body. And it's considered either a body as a blueprint, a sheath, so a thin layer of experience, which is accompanied by other layers, which then you pierce and move through freely, or it has trapped you in some way, shape, or form, and is holding you hostage and prisoner within its patterning. And this is just truth. It's the earnestness of being human. You're allowed for that to happen. And if you resonate with that in any way, shape, or form, well, there's a cultivated solution. The cultivation has been happening over a prolonged period of time, and it's organic in nature. It's designed as a technique to be administered or be met with a personal experiencer, an individual. And as soon as that technique meets that individual, it becomes personalized. So now it's your technique. And what happens to you in that technique during this dance, during this meditative movement, is exactly what needs to happen. No matter how sweet or how volatile, this is exactly what needs to happen. So then the developing question is, how then do I flex and engage this mental mind muscle to release when a thought comes through, to ensure that there's no holding, and grip and engage into that quality of spaciousness where nothing is happening. How do we do that? So continuing with this developing meditator who has successfully been able to say, yes, I can slow down thought, I can find stillness, I can engage with it, I can even flex that inner mind muscle and maintain it. The answer is that we start to develop a subtle sensitivity of that which is beyond the borders of what we call our ultimate reality. Ultimately, you as being the experiencer and the experiences which come to you as the ultimate experience, we want to step out of that boundary. And we step out of the boundary by going deeper inwards. Deeper inwards with our gaze. And our gaze is then instructing the rhythms of breathing. And the rhythms of breathing is instructing the subtleties of sensation. The subtlety of sensation is now anchoring the rhythms of breath and the state of mind into a sensory experience that we can take confidence in because it's occurring through our physical body. So it's becoming embodied. The embodiment of that which is occurring outside of the boundary that you call your reality. So what we're introducing, what we're allowing into our meditation practice is something which is unknown, something which has yet to be experienced. And what we are letting go of is everything which is already known and everything which has already been experienced. Why? Because you know it. So if you know, well then why? Why are you doing that? There's an answer to that question. There's an answer to the why. And remember, we do not want to spend too much time on the detail of how this all occurred, but rather spend more time on experiencing the quality of space which is beyond that which you know. Does anybody know what that quality of space is? We have theories, so many theories, but nobody really knows. But what we can all agree on, like as global science, but also as a global spiritual experience, is that which is the most subtle occurring within the space between you and I is the building blocks of everything. So all things manifest from that space. Okay, so now all things manifest from that space. Which means you are as close as one could possibly get to the source experience. Who you are, where you come from, and also the answer as to why you're here. Here meaning here. And each moment now here. Here, 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 here. So the seeking for the solution to your present mental state and experiences which come from that state exists within the quality of space itself. Now, to engage with it is then to trust that which is beyond your regular understanding tools, because it's undefined. We don't know that space. To cultivate a relationship with that subtlety, to put that subtlety to the test, is then to gain experience. And through the direct experience, you can then say without a shadow of a doubt that yes, this is true. Yes, this works. Yes, this gave me the correct direction. Now, that being said, we all know our own personal tendencies around belief system and trust. Each individual is different, so you know better than I. And when we have this sentiment around wishing to go deeper, higher, to greater states of mental experience, we often shut down the answer. We shut it down. We get the answer, we get the direction, and then we say, that's not as fun. Or, I don't think I could do that. Or, that might be really uncomfortable to do A, B, C, and D. And you can challenge me if you feel that this is not true. But if you feel that it is true, to some extent, is that not absolutely fascinating to you? That you have agreed with your capture, with the aspect that is creating the bondage, that it's a good idea to stay here. Fascinating. Why? What is it that's holding you there? It's a part of that deep-rooted survival mechanism that says, you better stay, just in case. And that could be very well and true, and I hope it is, because that's the easy fix. That's very easy to move through, because it's tried, tested, and true, which has created results again and 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 again, to ensure that the methods of meditation and becoming conscious with your own self in relation to the pieces of thought and mind and emotion really work. So if we go back to the how, it's taking those tiny little baby steps, engaging with the quality of space and trusting it, and then relaxing into that, not taking too much at any one given time. Just relax into that, into your meditation. And develop a strategy for yourself that will quiet down the mind, quiet down the mind, quiet down the mind. And ideally, the strategy is revolving around a technique. I could share the technique with you anytime, or maybe we'll have a more formal setting one day. But if we can commit beyond anything else within our meditation time to comfort and what that means, then that becomes a focal point for your meditation experience. Technically eyes closed, but also eyes open and walking around. So comfort means you're comfortable with the fact that your mind is producing thoughts that you really don't want to look at anymore. You're comfortable with the fact that you don't really know what's beyond the patterned mind which is presenting itself to you. You're comfortable with taking the next step as to how to become more quiet. You're comfortable, you're comfortable, you're comfortable. And what happens when you're comfortable? Like at the end of the night, when you're lying in your bed and you go increasingly deeper into comfort, 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 comfort. Well, I think that we would all agree that thought formations begin to lose the ability to distract and to engage with us. It becomes increasingly more quiet, increasingly more peaceful, and increasingly easier to peer into the space that exists inside as something which is known to us, is no longer foreign. So this is the benefit of relying on a technique which is coming from thousands of years of experience and coupling it with your unique human experience and allowing the two to work together in order to create an environment which is conducive for your growth and development. Meditation is about growth and development. So that means that two things are getting cleaned up and strengthened, that of your inner reality and that of your outer reality. And the reason for that is what we are cultivating is a meditative state. And ideally, we want to maintain a meditative state for as long as we possibly can. So that means any interruptions coming from the outside or any interruptions coming from the inside, we want to marginalize and then over time put to complete rest so the whole world becomes our ashram. And there's always two engagements within any experience which we have. There's subject and object. So you are the subject. And then there's an object which comes your way. And in that, there's two. So that individual has a piece, or that thing has a piece of the puzzle, and you as the conscious being, the decision maker, has a piece of the puzzle. In one aspect, that external part, and that external part could even be a thought, we have little to no control over, it seems like. Little to no control over that individual or thought. Right? So somebody comes to the room and they start talking and you ask them to be quiet. Well, why should they? Why should they be quiet just because you said so? Makes sense. So if we look at mind as an individual, it makes sense. You ask the mind to be quiet, and the mind just says no. The thought says no thanks. The second piece, the second part of the equation is you, subject, the experiencer, the observer, that which you have absolute full control of. So now it's then up to me as the individual to choose how I'm going to engage with my surroundings, with my reality. And if I say that this is a comfortable experience, meaning I'm willing to find comfort within that which is uncomfortable, then over time, my decision in a consistent, constant manner will start to outweigh the tendency to look at that object as being something undesirable, something that's noisy, something that's distracting, and rather begin to look at that which is occurring as being a simple part of nature. Nature has so many varieties, and it does what it does in such an intricate balance. So we have outer nature, we also have human nature. All of that which is of nature runs through the same form of law or governance. It just is that way. So for thousands of years, these wisdom traditions have been observing nature in order to find ways that are conducive to work with the human nature, that of experience of mind and all the rest. So when we look at a body of water, a river which is flowing, it takes a lot to stop that flow of the river. If there's a rock, it just goes over, unbiased, doesn't matter. And quite sweetly, it will erode that rock over time until the rock is no longer existing. But this is the nature which exists within your meditation practice. The flow of mental energy which is going towards that which is this eternal vastness of space that we're merging with almost when we go deep into meditation, is that flowing water which is naturally just moving towards that ocean. And no matter what is put in front of it, it will flow through, around. There's no obstacle for that water. There's no obstacle for that healthy flowing mind. It's just time. So then you decide whether or not you're going to get frustrated. You decide whether or not you're going to get angry. You decide whether or not you're going to become subject to that which is clearly stated is no longer needed. And you decide that you are simply going to ride on the currents of this mental energy as it moves towards the ocean, bypassing all obstacle. A couple rapids here and there, but no biggie. So it's returning back again and again and again and again and again and again to the central axis, which makes your human experience. That human experience is found within the center of the body, the center of breath, the center of mind, and in that mysterious something between you and I. And if we stay very closely to that central experience, the periphery has no choice but then to begin to reflect that which our focus is placed upon, our focal point. realizing that we're not talking about a mental focal point that you gaze at, but we're talking about the entire body's worth of experience as being the focus of this focal point. So even for the subtle mind, which has already found this quality of space, this sweet stillness, the engagement is the same. We simply become more willing to trust that subtle whisper that never forces us to do anything. It's almost as though we're not used to it. So therefore we don't trust it. Because we're used to getting forced to do things that we don't want to do all the time. Which started a very long time ago. But to recognize and realize that now you can do whatever you want. You are actually allowed to do whatever it is that you want. Externally, but also internally. Beginning to recognize that our internal reality is as significant as our outer reality. And for me, that's a very big statement. So something that you engage with on the external of your reality begins to create nervous system communication, glandular secretion, to provide the proper chemical relationship in order to produce the state that this mental memory has for that engagement of environment. But that external is also manifested on the internal. So that means thought and emotion have that same power over the nervous system, over the glandular system, over the overall health and well-being. So that which is being experienced and stated on the inside is as real as that which is being experienced on the outside. And I believe that as a society, we're not quite there yet in the full understanding of the reality that that which you see and experience on the inside is really happening at a certain level. And because it is not a constant, it does not constantly occur, then it is in transit. And if it is in transit, it no longer needs to be present if that is your choice. It is not just who you are. It is not just who you are. It is not just the way it is. But instead, you have an opportunity to choose that which is conducive for your development. So what is that? What is the optimal mental experience, body resting, that is conducive for your development? And ask yourself that question now, if you could. And I guarantee you, without a shadow of a doubt, you receive the answer. And it doesn't always come in the form of verbal dialogue. It could be a subtlety of sensation, it could be a knowing. It could be just a simple sweetness. But now, can you follow that? Just for a split second, can you follow that which is conducive for your development? And the thought and image that's happening right now, does it align as being yes, favorable in that journey, or no, it's compromising some way. If it's yes, just keep it going. If it's no, then do what you already know how to do and simply let it pass by, because it's transient. It doesn't stay unless you choose it to. In full understanding and awareness that this choice is coming from deep down in the subconscious, which is very active and granting wishes as they are produced as requests. It is most definitely the easiest thing that we can do within the realm of slightly challenging things to be done. Makes sense. And I think we all feel that. It feels very challenging. I mean, people sit in monasteries 10 hours a day, closing the eyes, to do exactly this. But you are alive on the planet doing whatever you do all day long. What is it that you do? In the purest form, you're really only doing one thing, and that's engaging with yourself. So in that, you live in an ashram no matter where you are. And if we're very conscious with how we choose to engage with ourselves, it becomes incredibly easy, because we're with ourselves 24 hours a day. We're just simply making decisions. So that's becoming conscious. You're actually conscious of that decision when you make it. And there is a truth that maybe we're not conscious, but at that point we don't even know that we're making that choice, so it's okay. But once you begin to know, and you have to ask yourself, well, why am I doing that? So, if this resonates with you in any way, shape, or form, I suggest that you take it on as a personal practice odyssey to achieve a level of consciousness within one's own experience internally, to the point where we're able to see the natural rhythms which exist. The natural rhythm that, oh, that rock got put there, but I'm just going to keep going. What to do? That rock got put there 14 years ago. In an unbiased flow towards the ocean, right? All rivers flow towards the ocean. No matter what, rock, log, waterfall, just keep going. Any questions? Mm-hmm.
Would you say that in discerning the instruction that you receive at all times of the day, that the kindness with which it's presented is a way of measuring its authenticity?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Any other questions?
if you're rock climbing, you're really not thinking about much other than the next hole, the next turnbuckle that has to go in. If you're driving, say fast on the Autobahn, you're quite aware, you're really intense. So where is the mind at that point? Is that the mind also?
Most definitely, it's the mind engaged. So we always look at mind as being really the space between you and I. Because when I close my eyes and say I'm looking at my mind, it's endless. So you look at the stars, you close your eyes, you're looking at the same thing really. It's all this vastness of experience of mind. So where you're engaging consciously, as you increase intensity, you're crystallizing that experience and rising to the occasion of whatever it is that is the request.
Are thoughts bubbles of the mind forming?
Yeah, bubbles would be a good word. Mm-hmm. The thoughts are formed, right? They manifest. Have you ever watched your thought manifest before? That's really closely looked at it in awe. I'm in awe now. As it collects itself and starts to manifest, as wow, that just happened.
Then is the bubble real?
No.
But we believe, our inner selves tend to believe the mind. The mind has tricked us somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And the yogic practice is to dissolve that trickery so we see clearly reality.
Yes. So when we say the mind or the thought is not real, we're talking about its eternal quality. So that which fades away is not ultimately the reality of the reality of the reality. It's real for a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Fully, we believe that it's absolutely 100%, and it is that.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens when it dissolves and goes away?
Mm-hmm. How does the essence of ourselves become the Nataraj? How do we get to that point of holding all this, standing on ignorance and understanding everything?
Inner mind muscle.
And a mind muscle. And
Inner mind muscle.
Inner mind muscle.
Yes. Because with Nataraj as a depiction of an ultimate experience, it is a harnessing of that cosmic energy, that Shakti, the Kundalini. And in order to harness that very strong energy, we must have enough strength. But that energy that is the ultimate in its electrical expression is found everywhere. So we just taper back.
Seems like you're tantalizing my mind to want to go there and discover that.
I'm hoping.
It seems to be working.
Yes. Little appetizer for you.
Yes, thank you. One further thing, though. The whole essence of trying to become clear of who I am, if I am source experience, whatever, I'm guessing now because I don't know, but who I am, involves a whole process of choices. And the choices could be simple things like choosing the types of food you eat, choosing the types of music you listen to, type of company you keep, whether you're in nature or not, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
If we allow the bubbles to become the reality and they direct the small self to those those experiences, shall we say, then we seem to go in a labyrinth of confusion. We seem to get misdirected, and it takes a while for us to find our center again, our center in the center in the center, as you speak of. Boy, this is so... I love when I sit and meditate. I love this feeling. Even for the millisecond that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I love this feeling. Is that my mind having the feeling in the meditation? Or, and is it trickery to create a false bubble, or am I actually experiencing this expansion? You wouldn't know, I guess. That's right. How would you know?
You will know. You know.
I would know, yeah.
Yeah, you do. That's my easy answer.
Thank you, I've got that already.
But you do know. You do know. And oftentimes where the trickery comes in is that the distraction part.
Yeah,
We distract ourselves out of it.
yeah.
And when you ask the question, well, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that you're a human being at this moment in time, having
I do know that, yes.
ultimately a human experience.
I do know that too.
And within that human experience, as you're experiencing it, what is the most optimal way to have those experiences as they're being experienced? What's the optimal way? And that's a choice.
Yes. But I was thinking pure experience.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Breath. Phew, that's pure experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, there it is. Whoa, there it is. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's pure experience.
Mm-hmm.
Something's having that within me called George, having that pure experience.
Yes.
And then we're going to take that subtle experience and go and expand it more and more on the inner,
Mm-hmm.
as you spoke of. And that forms an understanding of reality on the inner as being as real as on the outer that you spoke of.
Yes. So everything is made up of that pure experience. Your thought is made up of that pure experience, temporarily suspended in its creative expression,
Mm-hmm.
only to dissolve back into a pure innocence of nothing. So it's actually made up of the parts. The sum of the parts that make up nothing is actually that which is everything. That which is everything ultimately dissolves into nothing. So the ultimate understanding that we can glean onto and really rest with is that nothing is permanent. So therefore that thought, that feeling, that experience will ultimately dissolve and give way back into this ultimate joy that you so
Wow,
enjoy.
let's go there.
You are there,
I know,
enjoying.
it's wonderful.
It is wonderful.
So
then it's
attachment-
just a cultivation.
But attachments can be tricky too. The mind plays, like, we have these attachments that come into play and create realities that
Mhm.
don't exist. And we have these stories and narratives that we live that are stories and narratives. They really are just all up here,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not real. Correct?
Correct. They're not ultimately.
But they feel real when my heart is broken. It feels real when my lover left me and my heart is broken. It feels real.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this is why we call it an odyssey.
Okay.
It is that. It's, we know, but yet we still do it. Why? Well,
Foolish
you'll
hearts.
find out one day.
Foolish hearts.
You will find out one
Oh,
day.
Bhagavan, you're so sweet.
Thank you. Very good. Any last final questions? You got this. You know. You know. You would not be sitting here if you didn't know. You just wouldn't. So therefore, we are in a perfect position in order to achieve that which you feel is important. That which you feel is correct. And we can narrow the scope just to be concerned with your time spent within meditation right now, and that's it. Nothing else. Nothing else is needed during meditation except for the moment that you're having now, and getting to know that moment as it occurs now. I mean, beautifully, you're sitting in a room, in a beautiful building, in a beautiful city, in a beautiful province, in a beautiful part of this world, right? Just you, little one, sitting there. As this earth is spinning at a ridiculous amount or rate, orbiting around the sun and hurling itself through space and time like that. And I love talking about that particular aspect because imagine how exact the calculation needs to be in order for you to be sitting here in this room right now. That is, to me, an amazing miracle that it's all just simply happening. And what we're doing with our meditation practice is merging with that intelligence, quite literally, becoming very quiet and just experiencing, sometimes in awe, the magnificence which is our reality. Just narrowing it down to the time of meditation, that's it. Please close your eyes. Be sweet, be gentle, be kind with yourself as you are learning how to engage with yourself. As you sit on the cushion, if you were to experience the perfect seat for meditation, what would it look like? What would it feel like? If you were to sit as a significant part of this multiverse, what would then begin to happen? Just bring full deep breaths into the body. Keeping the eyes closed, bring your gaze into the space just there in front of you. And with a soft intensity, let's maintain the integrity of the space, uninterrupted by any thought. Starting now. Keeping the eyes closed, soften your gaze, and very gently allow the eyes to open. Ultimately, what we're doing with a meditation practice is learning how to allow the subtlety, the softness of the space that we engage with within meditation to do all of the challenging work for us. All we have to do is just keep listening and engaging to that subtlety, and it will place you exactly where you need to be and dissolve all that is no longer needed. But we must engage with it. So if you want to say hi to me, for instance, but I didn't say hi to you yet, then there's no saying hi until you engage with me and say hi. And then I say hi back. That's everything. If you want to go that way, you must start walking that way. If you don't want to move anywhere, you just want to experience, you must then stay still. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste.